Welcome to the show, everyone. I'm Mr. Ethics, the good guy in the industry, and this is Michael, Mr. Growth.
I'm the bad guy in the industry. There we go. And today, have we got a show for you? We've got good stuff coming out, don't we, Ward?
We do, mate. We've got heaps of stuff coming up. So many people to talk to about good things in the industry, bad things in the industry, and all in between.
Welcome to the podcast again. I'm here with my friend Ward. My name's Michael, and we're here to have a bit of a chat. What are we going to be talking about, Ward?
Oh, I'm here to talk about ethics in the NDIS space, mate. And that's what I'm all about.
Okay, and I'm here to talk about not going broke in the endo space, and that's what I'm all about. So there's a bit of a clash that happens when you start talking about, okay, what's good for these people is not necessarily good for those people, and that's what we're going to explore. What are you most looking forward to today?
Mate, I'm looking at how we can explore to meld the two together so we can work in an ethical framework, but also be profitable at the same time.
Love it.
Everybody, welcome to today's topic, how to burn your team out. In the industry that we're in at the moment, people are wearing so many hats, doing so many things, overworked, underpaid for what they're doing. That's the space we're working in.
True. And that's not even the directors. Because I know directors who are earning less than their support workers, and they're burned out too. And so the idea of how to burn your team out, well, you can burn your team out by what? What are the things that wear a team out?
Too many hats, doing too many roles like BD, rostering, intake work, all in the same person. Why aren't you getting referrals coming in? Why isn't this person being onboarded? The shift's been missed here. Too many fires to put out.
Yeah, it's pretty hard to enjoy your work when your work is chopping and changing. Okay, I get that. This is a special guest. This is an edit of a conversation we had with them on another day. We're going to put that into this podcast, see what your thoughts are. Let's see how there were some other questions. Today, Ward and I have decided to call in an expert. We've called in Brett from the Self-Care Zone.
Okay, Brett, you work in the behaviour support space and you're there supporting people. And as we know, the NDIS don't give out a lot of funding for these sort of things. And you get to the end of someone's plan, but they're still going through a bit of crisis and need a bit of support. Where do you stand on actually giving them the materials to actually support them to get through to that next stage?
Do you go home mid-shift, or do you actually stay beyond the call of duty and do free work? Is that what you're saying, Wood?
Pretty much, yeah.
So as a behaviour support, you've got the option of if there's behaviour support funding, the specialist behaviour support funding, and then the behaviour management funding. But also too, if you're running out of funding, you can go to the support coordinator and say, hey, I've got this little crisis coming up for the family. Can we take a little bit of funding from core supports, say 10 hours to get through? I'll provide these strategies and this work to get them through while we're going for a plan review.
What happened? We all know the plan reviews take forever to get through.
Yeah.
And someone else might be saying, well, those core supports are for Ward's home services that provide support on a daily basis.
I think the question's going down the path, Brett, whichever way we want to take it, of, are you going to work for free if it comes down to it?
I have done a couple of times.
A couple of times? 1% of your working life as a BSP, or 0.1 or 10%? What are we talking about?
So I had a client this year who is on the PACE system where the family have to go into the NDIS portal and say, we allocate behaviour support funding to this service. And they hadn't done that, but there was the crisis where they needed it. So I went and did a home visit, which was 40 minutes away, plus the hour and a half for the home visit, plus the 40-minute drive home, where I couldn't bill for it.
So would you do that again? Where do you draw the line?
If they need it at the time, then, and there's no other options, then yeah, I'll do it.
Do you get paid later for it, or you just don't get paid for it?
You don't get paid for it.
Okay. So
it's like you go to, you crash your car and you go to the panel beaters, and then they do the assessment and they go to the insurance company, this is going to cost $11,000 to fix. And they go, yeah, okay, here's the funding to go do that. But then they didn't assess that properly and it's going to cost $15,000. Well, they can't go back to the insurance company and say, hey, can we have another $4,000 to cover this? They've just got to find a way to cover it. The insurance won't pay it.
Okay.
So if the funding's there and they haven't actually allocated that funding, can't you access that at a later date?
what you can do is you can backdate your notes to show that you attended on the 27th of June, but funding wasn't available until the 30th of August, and you just backdate it that way, if that's been approved by the family and support coordinator.
You're right.
Okay, so how often would you accept that as normal? You obviously do it as a one-off for a family because you care about them. How often would you accept that as normal? And then where would you draw the line? And then how would you communicate when you're drawing the line?
I've been doing behaviour support for almost 6 years, and I think in that time I've done maybe 5 home visits that weren't paid, just because the funding wasn't there. There was a crisis and was needed. But I think it's also important to say, hang on, what are the guidelines for the company that you work for that say when you can do this? Because otherwise you're just going to get taken advantage of. So you need to go, well, the company that you work for needs to have guidelines around, do we do this or do we not do this? And stick to those guidelines.
And you work a lot with businesses in the self-care zone.
Mhm.
How many businesses do you speak to that they have their staff working for free in various aspects because the participant funding's run out?
I've spoken to a couple that do that.
Yeah.
And where do you stand on that, Brett? Like, if that was 50% of your work life, you'd have a problem, right? Is it a problem at 10%? Is it a problem at 5%? Is it a problem at 1%? Where do you stand on that?
I think it depends on what your costs are. If you can weather that storm for maybe a week or two, you're kind of pushing it beyond that, where, you want to stay profitable so you can continue to provide the supports that you are. Because if you haven't got that money backing you, a business that doesn't make a profit is a closed business. If you're not going to charge, if you can't charge, you can't then make a profit for it.
Okay. So in 5 or 6 years, you've done this 5 times. If this had been, let's imagine in the next 6 months, you're called on to do this 5 more times. Where do you stand on that?
I'm not sure I would.
Because I flat out wouldn't, but I'm not you, and I'm not Mr. Ethics over here. Like, what factors go through your head?
The risk to the participant. But then also too, is the funding coming? If the funding's not going to come, then you're not going to do it either.
But are you going to do it if it's a high risk for the individual or the staff that are working with that individual?
Well, that also comes back to the staff, the company that staff works for. What are their procedures in terms of this? Do they, what's the process? Do they call an ambulance whenever something escalates? Which most places will do. Do they, have an extra person that they can call in, have 3 people on the shift when they need to? Does on-call then step up and go, hang on, I need to go and cover a shift?
Yep, but a business is putting themselves at risk if they don't have those BSPs in place.
Yeah.
And the potential of a higher work comp bill and all that sort of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I think if we want to call a spade, I think it's off the planet that we work in a government-funded industry where it's normal for people to do free time. I just think it's bizarre. And I think a lot of people are foolishly stepping into a trap set for them of giving free time because, the system's not providing. The system could be providing, they're choosing not to. So the more you enable that system, the more you're just giving the government its budget cuts by doing free work. I don't see how it helps anyone. I don't see how it solves the system-wide issue. If you've got an individual who's got a problem, like you're saying, you could call an ambulance. But I don't see why anyone should be abandoning their own family to go and provide support for someone the government's deliberately set systems up for in such a way that the money can't be accessed. I just think that's baffling. I don't understand why. And like Ward, I know to you that's like, well, what Brett's doing is the right thing to do. I get that. But as Mr. Growth, I'm like, I don't think Brett's doing a good job for anyone because it's not good for him. It's not good for his family. It's not good for the system doesn't need to change if people like Brett just keep rescuing it and stuff like that. And it doesn't take away from the fact that, Brett, you're doing a great thing by that. But I just don't think it's right. That's just what
about the individual that's behind all of this that needs these things in place to actually live a life?
But what if I have a hamburger shop and you're hungry, but you didn't bring your wallet? It's the same thing. I'm not going broke.
Good blokes. You'd see me.
I would do it for you once. I wouldn't do it for you a second day. I would, because at the end of the day, people are responsible for their own funding. And in the same way, people in this industry, we act like we're serving people. We're actually here working for the government. The government's what pays us. And for as long as we allow the government to not have to pay you for your services, we're facilitating this. Now, I'm not saying as a provider, I didn't sometimes work for free. I did, just like you do, Brett, just like we all do. But I'm not saying it's right, and I'm not saying I'd be willing to do it at the level that I used to be willing to do it. You see, yeah.
I was going to say, so what are your thoughts then when the NDIS do a plan review without speaking to the individual and then cut the funding?
Well, I think we all know our thoughts on that. We're like, what the hell? How is that even legal?
But then also, too, take that a step further. The practitioners have supplied the evidence to say the work they've done, the plan there for the next, the goal for the next NDIS plan. But then the NDIS has come out and said, but they don't read those reports anyway.
Yeah, no. They literally said that. The head of what?
Yeah.
What? One, how could that be true? Two, why would you say that if it was true?
Yeah.
Three, what does that mean for every document that they're paying people to do? We all feel baffled by it.
It's like a functional capacity assessment from an OT can cost, $5,000-$6,000, but you're not going to read the report that they've done. So what's the point of paying for it?
They could have skipped getting the report done.
Yeah.
And spent the money on burgers for Ward.
Yeah, that's right. I'd love the burger, mate. But the thing is, too, the people that they've got in the NDIS doing these plans aren't trained professionals. They're not an OT, or they're not a psychologist, or they're not in that industry. They're more of an admin person that's ticking a box and making sure that every step is taken to get through the plan review.
Well, they're essentially a customer service role.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wouldn't that be like someone designs a bridge that goes over a river, and then me as a non-engineer turns up and goes, nah, you've done it wrong. Nah, we're not paying for it. You're like, but we spent all the money on the engineer to design that. It's like, nah, trust me, nah. Is that any different, or am I missing something?
No, that's spot on, mate. But that's the system. That's how we're working.
It's crazy, guys. It's crazy. But again, we as Mr. Growth, we're like, hold on, well, what can we control? What can we do? Let's do that, and let's not even think about the stuff that's outside our control. We're not responsible for the decisions NDIA makes. We're just responsible for doing our bit well. Right. The special guest is packed away. Let's get back to our conversation that we had before that. So I guess anyone can get together, Ward, and be like, oh, we should be nice to people, okay? Which, I mean, that's more your job than mine, if we're honest. It's like, but the thing that people pay me to do is to not let them go broke. So what happens with the whole short-term versus long-term? Don't burn your team out, but how do you have revenue for payroll day,
It comes naturally, mate. What happens is if you have the right people doing the right jobs, everything will run smoothly. What's wrong with getting a bit of AI to support those people in the roles to reduce their tasks for that day, to support them to actually do the right thing by the individuals?
Well, that makes sense. Okay, so what do you see good teams doing with AI to prevent their teams getting burned out?
I think what you need to do is look at every specific task and see what the gaps are in that work role, and then try and work out how to best support that person to fill those gaps with a bit of AI, whether it's a virtual assistant or if it's a software program that supports AI through that system.
Okay, that makes sense. So I remember years ago I had a staff member who was like the worst speller I've ever seen. We bought him Grammarly, and I think it was for $20 a month. Grammarly stopped him embarrassing the heck out of us. Okay, I guess your AI could be that simple, or your AI could be a lot more complex. You can have, ChatGPT basically writing emails for your junior staff. Okay, yeah. But how does that stop people getting burned out? Because, I mean, all that happens is people become more productive is they get increased demands put on them. So how's that the solution?
Well, I find if you get it more streamlined with what the tasks are that we need to be doing in the industry, then we can make their role more drawn out for the day. It's able to be planned for during the day, and you get an odd spot fire that comes through that you need to put out or to look after. But if you've got things in place to support those people, if there's a spot fire, then you know that everything else is going to be taken care of as well.
All right. Maybe that works. I don't know. Here's one for you. Okay, Mr. Ethics. How do you handle it when a staff member turns up who's performing at an average level and says, hey, I haven't had a pay rise for 6 months or 12 months? And we sort that. What are your thoughts there? Because you don't want a burnout team, but the reality is that lack of pay is a factor in people taking time off and burning out.
Well, I think you'll have evidence to say that they're not performing at a high level, and you can discuss that role with them and say, look, maybe in 3 or 4 months' time, we'll have this conversation again, but you need to meet these KPIs to do that.
Fair enough. I wonder how that would go down with some of our 22-year-old BDMs who are immune to negative feedback. I mean, how do you have that conversation?
Well, I still think you have that conversation. But however they take it is up to them. But you need to have that conversation with them. You can't just say to them, sorry, you're not meeting those roles, see you later. You need to give them the opportunity to rectify their behaviour.
Yeah, that makes sense. Fair Work would have some words about if you didn't follow a process, I guess. But coming back to this, really, if we were to play the roles, like obviously you and I live in a normal world where we live a balanced life, but if you were to only advocate for staff welfare, and let's pretend I was to only advocate for business growth, why is there such a clash here?
I think that every person is an individual. Everyone has their strengths and weaknesses. Like I know I'm a morning person. I can get so much done in the morning, whereas come 2, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, I start to flake and I don't do my best work at that period of time. So if I had my ideal world, I'd start work at 7 o'clock in the morning and finish around about 2:30, 3 o'clock in the afternoon because that's my optimum time. Whereas you might start work at 10 o'clock in the afternoon and go right through till 6. That's your optimum time that you can get the best out of you. Why can't we do that in this industry?
Maybe we can. I don't know. I know plenty of support workers who'll send a text, sorry, my alarm didn't go off. How are things going there at the Seal House? Yeah, good luck with that. Okay, so you're talking about not burning people out by giving them hours that work for them. That makes sense. Okay, and just being real with you, my perfect hour starts at 5:30 in the morning. And you're talking about basically treating people with honesty. Like we were talking about, if someone hasn't earned a pay rise, they haven't earned a pay rise. Here's the thing that goes through my head. Even if someone has earned a pay rise, I don't see how they can be given a pay rise lately. When was the last time support coordinators were paid any extra by NDIS? It's like 6 or 7 years ago.
Yeah. And this is the thing we're working in. We need to value the people that are working for us. But how do we do that when we don't have the scope to actually increase the wages for them? And with the cost of living keeping going up and up and up, cost of fuel going up and up and up, cost of rents and mortgages going up, how is it sustainable?
You're trying to get more out for less input.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm sure, Mr. Ethics, you've got thoughts on that. All I know is that we're all going to lose our best staff in the next year or two if something doesn't change massively.
Well, I was just talking to a support coordinator this morning who's feeling burnt out in the industry, and she's looking at leaving to go to another sector because she feels more valuable in that she can earn more money and doing less responsibility.
Well, if the only thing I'm thinking of is growth in this caricature that I'm playing right now, I would encourage her to do that. It makes no sense to stay in an industry where they can't increase your wages while your mortgage hasn't got cheaper, your petrol hasn't got cheaper, your food certainly hasn't got cheaper.
Yep. But what are we doing to encourage people to stay?
Well, I wouldn't be encouraging people to stay. I'd be encouraging people to do what's right for them.
But then we'll get people that aren't suited to this industry to come in just because there's a labour shortage, and they'll be using the disability sector as a stopgap to what they do instead of actually being in it for the right reasons.
And how's that any different, Ward, from the childcare industry?
In the wash.
Because the childcare industry, you've got completely underpaid staff who there's no incentive for quality people to want to join that. The only people who join that are people who just love working with kids, and they're poorly paid, so they stay for a while, then they go and get a good job somewhere else because they've got a mortgage. Really, that puts us back into that sort of category, and it means we'll have that level of staff.
and you look at the turnover rate with support staff, you look at the turnover rate with support coordinators, you look at the turnover rate with team leaders at the moment, BDs that you always see on LinkedIn, Ward's starting a new role with ABC support coordination. 6 months later, Ward's starting a new role with DEF support coordination.
It's true, isn't it?
Jumping to next one. Yeah.
All right. So, Mr. Ethics, what are you proposing as a solution?
I think we need to look outside the normal of what is deemed of the normal in this industry. I think people should be in charge of their own calendars to a certain degree.
I know a lot of support coordinators are in charge of their own calendars. Trust me.
But also too, in a way that suits the best for the individual that they're supporting as well. So if you've got an individual that has a stakeholder that works retail Monday to Friday, 9 to 5, and you set up a stakeholder meeting on a Wednesday afternoon at 2:00, they need to take that whole Wednesday off just for that meeting. And 9 times out of 10, it's cancelled because the physio can't get there, or the OT can't get there, or the SIL provider can't get there. So that person misses out on a thing. Whereas if you could book it in for a Friday afternoon or a Saturday morning where it's available for that person to be part of that person's input, then why not do that? Give the support coordinator a bit of time off during the week.
It makes sense. So basically, you're arguing, Mr. Ethics is arguing for flexibility for people to do all things. Flexibility of their shifts, just being organised, stuff like that. Yeah, that meeting sounds like a nightmare before we even start, because it's not going to happen anyway, like you're saying. Okay, and then if we can't increase people's pay, where does that leave us? I mean, what's the ethical approach there? Give them a piece of cake? Like, how do we have a future if we can't increase people's pays?
And what's wrong with coffee and cake, man?
Well, I don't know. It doesn't pay my mortgage. I can't stick it in my car. It probably wouldn't work out so well if it did.
Oh, well, probably not. But the thing is, it's all about how you treat your staff. Like, why do people leave a job? It's because of the person above them that's looking after them 99% of the time. It's not because the company has terrible ethics or values or a work culture or anything. It's how they're treated in that role that they're working in, whether they feel valued or not. If you can make someone feel valued and they can pay their way through life, they've joined up with that role because they know exactly how much the pay is. They know exactly what shifts they need to do, what work needs to be done. So no one's being forced to do this role that they're going into. If they can have someone that supports them to do that role, then they'll probably stay.
That makes sense. It makes heaps of sense. And from a growth perspective, I think part of this, how to not burn your team out or how to burn your team out, is put the right people in the right spots. Like there's a lot of people, like in this industry, they'll start out with as support workers. Next thing you know, they're so-called managing other support workers.
Yeah.
Where the hell did you learn to manage people? You didn't. All they are is glorified rostering machines. You know what I mean?
Or the person's been there the longest, so therefore the team leader.
And it's nuts because leadership skills or management skills or even rostering skills are different from the skills it takes to be an awesome support worker. And I mean, when was the last time you saw a person in their early 20s who came pre-packaged with those skills?
Yeah.
It takes years to learn that. So I worry that we're causing a lot of burnout by putting the wrong people in the wrong spots. And that happens because it's either that or the director steps in and does it.
Yep, and the director doesn't have time to do that because they've got to look at the whole business as a whole.
Yeah, the director's trying to work out how they're going to do payroll next week.
Yeah, because their payments haven't been paid for the last 6 months from an NDIA.
Yeah, or because after 6 months they'd already be gone. It's like, or it's because they haven't even got the invoicing done because they've got such rubbish systems for invoicing, and the systems are slow, and they're waiting on plan managers to actually hit reply to an email. Good luck with that. I don't know. It's a hard industry, but what we can't do is burn our team out. For you don't want to see our teams get burnt out because that's not really ethical. For me, same, but also I don't want to see our teams get burnt out because then we don't have a team, and then without a team you can't make money. Do you know what I mean? Like you're done.
Exactly. Yeah, and you need to be sustainable in this industry to provide that continuous service to someone. And how do you do that if you're advertising for staff every 3 months or every 6 weeks or whatever? Because all that money costs 10 times to onboard a new staff member and to keep someone.
Yeah. It's like we're talking thousands of dollars to onboard a new staff member. You put the Seek out on, what's that, $400 or $500? Then don't quote me, but something like that. And then your own internal staff time to train them. That's so much time to do shadow shifts, only to lose them anyway, because to be honest, they were only half-hearted because the money they make isn't really worth it for them unless they're hitting those penalty rates. It's a tough deal. It makes me worry about the future of the industry, but at the same time, childcare centres still run.
Yeah. And it takes at least 3 months to get used to a new role anyway.
Until then, you're just treading water.
Exactly right.
So, Mr. Ethics, let's go. All right. If Mr. Ethics was going to propose one solution that's obviously staff burnout's a multifaceted thing. Let's one action step. What would it be? And then we'll see if Mr. Growth has got one.
Okay. So what Mr. Ethics would like to see in this industry to support staff not to burn out is have the right tools for them to access. The right people in the right roles, not wearing too many hats. I think that's probably the three things that I would make comment on that we need to do in this industry.
And how would you suggest people do that?
Well, there's providers out there that actually support people on how to have self-help within not burning out. Have the right tools, the right programs, the right software, the right equipment to actually do it, and the right people in the right roles. I'd be terrible at rostering because that's not my forte. But if I was linked with BD, fantastic. But if I had those two roles together, BD would be far outweighing the rostering component, and I'd be letting everyone down doing that.
This is a special guest. This is an edit of a conversation we had with them on another day. We're going to put that in this podcast, see what your thoughts are. Let's see how there are some other questions.
All right. So, Brett, what would you do in this situation? So you're trying to balance boundaries and well-being without putting it in a too hard basket, right? And especially over a long weekend or like over a public holiday or things like that. And you get a call from someone that's quite difficult and you know that it's going to take quite a few hours to sort out. So people just put it in a too hard basket and try and fob people off? Or how do you find it?
Yeah, I think sometimes they might, but also too, if they're on encore for the weekend, you go, well, I'm getting public holiday rates for this. I can take a bit longer than I have to get this done and get more money for myself.
Yeah, but I'm having a barbie with my friends and my family that have come over for the long weekend, and his phone keeps ringing.
I don't think, Ward, you're getting it. 2.5 times the usual rate. Barbecue, let it burn. We'll order Domino's. We're fine. What are you thinking, Brett?
Well, I'm going back to something that I experienced where I had to call my own ambulance on Easter weekend. I had a dislocated knee, and when I called on-call to let them know what was going on, I actually got abused for it because they had to go and find a replacement for me at short notice. So, you've got this, potentially difficult person calling you, but, I've then got to go and call all support workers that are available in the area to see if they can go and fill in for a 3-4 hour shift, rather than viewing it as I need to get this sorted so that the person is safe.
There's so many layers on this. Well, everyone gets paid the earth. They're going to say yes. 2, I mean, did you use your knee to phone the ambulance is my next question. 3, why is someone hassling you for asking them to do their job, which is to organise a support person? None of this makes sense to me.
Nope.
Mr.
Doesn't make sense to me either.
All right, so what's our take on this? For me, I'm like, why is this an issue? What's going through your head, Wood?
Well, what's going through my head is, again, we've lost the sense of why we're here. Like, we're here to support people. And whether or not that takes 5 minutes or 5 hours to sort out, that's what our job role is. And we need to be there for our staff and support them through the times that they're going through, whether it's good or bad. And we need to be there for them, no matter what day of the week it is.
That's all well and good till you've stuffed your knee and you can't get someone there and people don't want to get paid double time. That's a bit tricky. I see that these things, they come in multi-layer. Okay, like
that guy who you phoned and he didn't want it to be his problem, like he's probably got his wife telling him, "Can you stop working? Like we're supposed to be at the in-laws' place." And you're there with your sore knee going, I don't have a lot of options here. I need to solve this. What's the procedure? You're trying to follow the procedure. And then the other support workers will find me a support worker who answers their phone anyway, So I don't know how we win this. Like, Brett, where do we stand on this one?
I think it's important to remember in these situations that your product is the support workers. If they're calling you in, on the floor with a dislocated knee, they need your support. Your product needs your support. Your job is to support that product to provide the quality service that participant deserves.
So the bottom line is your middle manager didn't do his job. Yeah, well.
Yeah.
I was going to say, do you think, Brett, that the larger organisations sort of lose their sort of reality in regard to on-call and overtime and all that sort of stuff, where they just say to their managers, you need to minimise your calls, you need to reduce the overtime, and we're only going to pay you a certain amount for those weekends?
I don't think it's necessarily just the big organizations that do that. I think a lot of services are trying to cut costs, and you still got to pay that person to be on call because they've got the phone. But I think it comes down to the leadership of the business that determines whether they're supported to, go the extra mile and be that on-call person. Because like there are large organizations out there who, following an incident seem to not reach out when they need to, but then you've got small organizations who then, oh, that's not my job, I'll pass it on to someone else. But as I said before, that your product is your support workers. You need to support them.
That makes sense. Well, I think let's call this one what it is. It's a crap storm that happened because someone obviously had a bad day, but they had a bad day and they were allowed to because the system let them have a bad day. From Mr. Growth's perspective, he's like, well, fix the system, make sure everyone knows what their job is and make sure everyone knows the procedure. How hard would it have been for that guy to just get someone else to come in at double time? Easy. Everyone's going to say yes. And also like, Brett, yeah, good luck at the hospital. Like, solved. It's like, Mr. Ethics, where do you land on this?
Well, I think it comes down to self-care for the staff member, the person you're supporting, and also the individual that's on the on-call. Like, they might have had 50 other phone calls from staff that just haven't turned up because everyone went away for the long weekend.
Yeah. Drama. All I can say is drama. Fix your systems. They need Amy Gray. Amy Gray's a system fixer.
Right. The special guest is packed away. Let's get back to our conversation that we had before that.
Wow, that makes sense. Okay, got it. And then I guess if I was looking at this with just my growth hat on, right, business growing, I'd say that if I want a team to not burn out, I have to give them the tools, which is what you're saying. Give them good tools. You don't ask a plumber or an electrician to fix someone's house without giving them A-grade tools, do you?
No.
And yet we've got staff members using Excel spreadsheets to do rostering. What the heck is that? So there is so much that we can use tools, we can use automation or whatever for in the admin where you can't charge billable hours anyway. It makes sense. But really, I'm like, until a business fixes its systems, the staff will inevitably burn out because it's your systems that keep your expenses low. Okay. If everything you're doing is, it's a brand new email instead of a template. If everything you're doing is text messaging into a phone, that's a very slow way of doing it compared to just copying and pasting from a template on your computer, on the net, that sends out a text message for you. I think it's like the solution to staff burnout is have enough profitability that you can look after your staff. And a solution to that is to make sure your systems are actually efficient and effective.
Yep, so we agree on it.
I didn't think we would. How rare is that? All right. And this episode, Mr. Ethics and Mr. Growth have come to an agreement. I like it. Good work.
That's how it should work in this world, shouldn't it? Business and ethics should be together.
Well, this was an experiment. We didn't know when we first started doing these podcasts if we'd end up with highly divergent perspectives or whether we'd come to the same conclusion. I think we've come to a conclusion. Obviously, there's a lot more to staff burnout than this, but I think it's very reasonable to say that if you want to solve staff burnout, you can do that in a way that's profitable and looks after people. Would that be accurate?
Yeah, 100% great.
Awesome. See you in the next episode.
Cheers, mate.
Well, that was certainly one of my favourite shows. Again, Ward, thank you, Mr. Ethics from Mr. Growth. What have we got next week?
Mate, we've got a heap coming up, and look, it's going to raise some eyebrows, the stuff that we're talking about. It's going to be incredible.
Okay, let's hope it doesn't give people nightmares. Let's find out in a week, yeah?
Cheers, mate. See you then.